Question 1. To careful analysis of confined space entry operations, how should a certified HVACR safety professional respond when a subcontractor insists on entering an unventilated crawl space to inspect all ductwork without a permit or monitor in place? A. Allow entry if the worker is experienced in CP. B. Require atmospheric testing and a confined space permit before entry. C. Let the subcontractor proceed if the work is brief. D. Delegate responsibility to the general contractor. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. Under OSHA 29 CFR 1910.146, any space that has limited access, is not designed for continuous occupancy, and may contain atmospheric hazards is considered a permit-required confined space. Entry requires atmospheric testing, a confined space permit, proper ventilation, and a rescue plan. Allowing entry without these violates critical safety regulations and can be fatal. Experience alone does not mitigate risk. Deflecting responsibility also breaches legal and ethical safety responsibilities. Question 2. To what degree does selecting PPE based solely on task type without accounting for individual employee factors increase safety risks in HVACR environments? A. It has minimal impact if all workers are trained. B. It increases risk due to improper fit or compatibility. C. It decreases risk because tasks are the main factor. D. It's irrelevant as PPE is standardized. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. OSHA's PPE standards 29 CFR 1910 subpart I require hazard assessment and proper fit for all PPE. Factors like facial structure for respirators, allergies, e.g. latex, and even prescription eyewear affect PPE effectiveness. Improperly fit PPE can cause more harm than benefit, such as goggles that don't seal properly or gloves that reduce grip. Individual worker assessment is therefore essential. Question 3. Based on the information from a recent accident investigation, a technician suffered burns due to a refrigerant leak igniting near an open flame. What is the most effective root cause conclusion for this incident? A. The technician should not have used an open flame near refrigerant. B. The leak was not detected due to a failed sensor. C. There was inadequate hazard identification in the job planning. D. The supervisor did not observe the technician. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. Root cause analysis identifies underlying system failures, not just surface level blame. According to ANSI and ISO 45001, failure to identify flammable refrigerants and incompatible ignition sources in the pre-task hazard assessment is systemic failure. Blaming individuals does not address systemic corrections. Failed sensor is contributing cause, not root cause. Question 4. In light of recent developments in fire response protocols, what is the most important element to include when updating an HVACR company's emergency action plan? A list of all fire extinguishers by serial number. B. Evacuation maps tailored to each shift and location. C. Standard company response slogans for emergency drills. D. General fire safety tips without site-specific references. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. OSHA 1910.38 requires EAPs to be site-specific, covering evacuation routes and procedures clearly understood by all staff. Maps for different shifts ensure clarity in low-light or emergency conditions. Slogans and general advice don't meet compliance standards and fail under practical stress scenarios. Accurate, site-specific mapping saves lives during emergencies. Question 5. While examining a 480 HVACR disconnect panel, an apprentice accidentally energized the circuit by bypassing the lockout tag. What should the supervising technician have done to prevent this? A. Removed the apprentice from the site prior to energizing. B. Posted more warning signs near the panel. C. Conducted a verification of denergization and control access. D. Warned the apprentice verbally before beginning. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. Per OSHA 1910.333, B. Roman employers must ensure the circuit is both denergized and verified before work begins. Supervisors must also control access to prevent unauthorized re-energization. Warning signs alone are not sufficient. Verbal warnings and isolation of workers are not substitutes for lockout-agut verification and supervision. Question 6. Given the circumstances where Patel is asked to restart, A gas furnace. After servicing it, she notices the flue appears partially blocked and suspects incomplete combustion. What is her most compliant course of action under safety standards? A. Restart the unit and monitor CO levels later. B. Clear the visible blockage and restart immediately. C. Refuse to restart the unit until a full flue inspection is completed. D. Advise the homeowner to monitor it and return later. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. According to ANSI point 47 and OSHA 1910 subpart Z, CO is a known toxic hazard. Restarting a furnace with an obstructed flue can lead to lethal CO accumulation. ISA Patel must halt the restart and require a full inspection of the venting system. Responsibility lies with the technician to prevent exposure even if pressured by time or customers. Question 7. The foundation of safe elevated work begins with selecting the right access equipment. What factor is most critical when choosing between a ladder and a scaffold for rooftop HVAC service? A. The speed at which work can be completed. B. The technician's personal preference. C. The fall protection and stability requirements of the task. D. The availability of equipment at the site. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1926 subparts M and L make it clear that equipment selection must prioritize for hazard elimination and task stability. A scaffold provides greater surface stability for extended work. Ladders may not offer adequate protection, especially near edges or with heavy tools. Efficiency or preference does not override safety protocol. Question 8. With respect to updated HAZCOM standards, how should an HVACR firm ensure workers are properly protected when handling newly introduced cleaning chemicals with no PI SDS available? A. Allow use with gloves while awaiting SDS. B. Delay use until SDS review and training are complete. C. Use the chemical under supervision for evaluation. D. Substitute with similar older chemicals. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA's Hazard Communication Standard 29 CFR 1910.1200 mandates that employees must be trained on chemical hazards before exposure. SDS must be reviewed in advance, and temporary substitution or use under supervision does not eliminate liability. Using chemicals without full knowledge of hazards is serious compliance breach. Question 9. Demonstrated by field reports what method best reduces residual risk after all feasible engineering and administrative controls have been applied in HVACR service settings. A. Issuing blanket safety reminders weekly. B. Increasing penalties for safety violations. C. Enforcing mandatory PPE usage. D. Offering hazard pay for high-risk tasks. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. According to the hierarchy of controls, PPE is the last line of defense after engineering and administrative controls. OSHA and NIOSH support mandatory PPE policies for residual risk when hazards can't be eliminated or substituted. Reminders and pay incentives don't physically reduce exposure risk and cannot substitute for barriers and protections. Question 10. When presented with a need to clean biofilm from coils inside a rooftop air handler, technician Mr. Ortega is instructed to do so using high-pressure chemical sprays while standing on a narrow parapet ledge. What safety protocol should be enforced immediately? A. Allow the task with a coworker present. B. Proceed if Mr. Ortega wears a hard hat. C. Hold the task and provide fall protection and a safe working platform. D. Require a waiver signed by Mr. Ortega. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA fall protection requirements 1910 subpart D require that any work performed at height must include fall arrest or fall prevention controls if fall distance exceeds 4 feet. General industry. Narrow parapets are not adequate work platforms. Personal protective gear and waivers do not replace engineering controls like railings or anchor points. The task must be halted until proper protections are. Question 11. Given the circumstances, Mr. Ramirez is tasked with recovering refrigerant from an aging HVAC system suspected to contain a blend of R400 TINA and R22. Which approach best aligns with EPA Section 608 regulations to ensure environmental safety and regulatory compliance? A. Recover all refrigerant using an approved recovery machine designed for blended refrigerants. B. Vent small amounts of refrigerant to reduce system pressure before recovery. C. Only recover the R22 portion and vent the rest since it is less harmful. D. Use any recovery equipment as long as the system is not pressurized. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. EPA 40 CFR Part 82 prohibits venting refrigerants to the atmosphere during maintenance and requires recovery using approved equipment. Blended refrigerants like R400 TNET and R22 must be handled with equipment rated for those blends to prevent leaks and cross-contamination. Venting or selective recovery violates both environmental law and safe practice, posing ozone dip and greenhouse gas risks. Question 12. In a scenario where Evans begins service on an HVAC system but discovers the previous technician did not apply a lockout device during shutdown, what immediate action should Evans take to maintain compliance with OSHA's control of hazardous energy standards? A. Continue work cautiously without lockout since the power is off. B. Notify the supervisor and apply lockout again before proceeding. C. Remove the power source herself and start work. D. Inform coworkers and proceed with extreme caution. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.147 requires that hazardous energy sources be isolated and locked up prior to servicing. If no lockout device is present, work must stop until proper lockout procedures are implemented to prevent unexpected energization. Notification alone is insufficient, and removing power without authorization or applying unsafe work practices via regulations. Question 13. When considering arc flash hazards in HVACR electrical panels, what is the most critical factor in selecting appropriate PPE for a technician performing energized work? A. The technician's height and weight. B. The incident energy level determined by an arc flash risk assessment. C. The type of refrigerant used in the system. D. The technician's level of experience. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. NFPA 7 and OSHA 1910.269 mandate arc flash risk assessments to determine the incident energy calcum worker may be exposed to. PPE must be selected based on this assessment to provide adequate protection. Factors unrelated to electrical hazards like refrigerant type or personal attributes are irrelevant. Experience does not reduce exposure risks. Question 14. Based on the information is to observe sparking near a brazing operation on a rooftop unit. What is the most appropriate immediate action to mitigate fire risk according to OSHA standards and NFPA guidelines? A. Continue brazing, but keep a fire extinguisher nearby. B. Stop work, remove all combustible materials, and establish a fire watch. C. Use water spray to dampen the area before continuing. D. Alert the building manager and proceed cautiously. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.252 and NFPA 51 require fire prevention measures during hot work, including clearing combustibles and maintaining a fire watch during and after brazing. Simply having a fire extinguisher nearby or using water spray is insufficient. Immediate removal of hazards and active monitoring are critical to prevent fires. Question 15. In the context of preparing a DA or rooftop HVAC system maintenance in an urban high-rise, what should be the primary focus of the hazard identification to ensure worker safety? A. Weather conditions and potential for slips or falls. B. Availability of tools and materials. C. Time constraints of the job schedule. D. Personal preferences of the technician. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. A DA identifies hazards associated with specific tasks. For rooftop work, OSHA's Fall Protection Standard 29 CFR 1926.501 prioritizes hazards like weather, rain, wind leading to slips, trips, and falls. Tool availability or scheduling affects efficiency but are not primary safety hazards. Personal preferences do not influence hazard severity or control measures. Question 16. While working on a rooftop in extreme summer heat, Simmons begins to feel dizzy and disoriented. Based on OSHA's guidelines on heat illness prevention, what is the safest immediate course of action? A. Continue working and drink water when possible. B. Take brief rest and resume work quickly. C. Immediately stop work, move to shaded or cool area, and seek medical evaluation. D. Apply ice packs only after symptoms worsen. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA's heat illness prevention program requires prompt response to heat-related symptoms to prevent heat stroke, which can be fatal. Early recognition and immediate cessation of work, hydration, and cooling are essential. Continuing work risks serious injury. Waiting for symptoms to worsen can be life-threatening. Question 17. The fundamental question is, after a minor chemical exposure incident where an HVAC technician developed skin irritation, what investigation step is most critical to prevent recurrence? A. Disciplining the affected technician. B. Reviewing and improving chemical handling and PPE protocols. C. Increasing the frequency of safety meetings. D. Replacing the chemical with a stronger alternative. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Incident investigations aim to identify root causes and implement corrective actions. OSHA recommends reviewing procedures, training, and PPE adequacy following exposures. Disciplining workers or changing chemicals without addressing protocols does not solve underlying safety gaps. Safety meetings are useful but insufficient alone. Question 18. In a scenario where Mr. Green must move several full refrigerant cylinders across a construction site, which practice best aligns with OSHA's safe handling requirements? A. Rolling cylinders horizontally to the location for speed. B. Carrying cylinders by the valve to ensure control. C. Using cylinder cart with securing straps and keeping valve caps in place. D. Dragging cylinders on their side when pathways are uneven. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.101 requires cylinders be transported using carts designed for that purpose, secured to prevent tipping or dropping. Valve caps must be in place to prevent damage. Rolling or dragging cylinders horizontally risks valve damage and gas leaks. Carrying by the valve is unsafe and prohibited. Question 19. Considering the evidence and potential exposure risks, what is the most comprehensive method HVACR technicians should use to protect themselves from blood-borne pathogens during maintenance in healthcare facilities? A. Use gloves only when visible blood is present. B. Follow universal precautions including gloves, eye protection, and proper disposal of sharps. C. Rely on hand washing after tasks are completed. D. Limit work to non-patient areas to avoid exposure. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA's blood-borne pathogens standard 29 CFR 1910.1030 requires universal precautions treating all human blood and bodily fluids as infectious. Gloves, face shields, and sharps disposal prevent transmission. Hand washing is important but secondary. PPE. Limiting work areas is not always practical or compliant in healthcare settings. Question 20. In the absence of proper refrigerant recovery equipment on site, what is the correct legal and ethical action Mr. should take before servicing a unit that requires refrigerant evacuation? A. Proceed with venting refrigerant to save time. B. Delay the job until appropriate HEPA-certified recovery equipment is available. C. Use makeshift recovery tools with manual pumps. D. Transfer refrigerant to unmarked containers temporarily. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. HEPA Section 608 prohibits venting refrigerants and requires certified recovery equipment. Using unauthorized tools or venting violates federal law and contributes to environmental harm. Delaying service until compliant equipment is on site is mandatory to maintain legal and environmental safety standards. Question 21. Through careful analysis of refrigerant recovery procedures, what is the most important reason that a technician like Is Huang must verify the recovery machine's filter and dry condition before starting refrigerant evacuation from a contaminated system? A. To ensure refrigerant blends are properly separated. B. To prevent oil contamination from reaching the recovery tank. C. To protect the machine from moisture or particulate damage. D. To comply with customer service contract terms. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. According to EPA Section 608 and RE Guideline K, contaminated refrigerants or systems with moisture and acid residues can damage recovery machines if filters are not inspected and replaced regularly. A clogged filter impairs evacuation efficiency and may result in improper recovery, violating EPA rules. Customer contracts or oil protection are secondary to equipment preservation and regulatory compliance. Question 22. In light of recent developments in electrical code compliance, what should Mr. Owens do before testing a control circuit inside a rooftop unit known to have intermittent arcing problems? A. Use an insulated screwdriver to move wires during power on. B. Apply lockout and test the system while energized. C. Wear Class A rubber gloves and work live to find the issue quickly. D. Bypass the disconnect switch to avoid repeated shutdowns. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. OSHA 1910.333 and NFPA 7I require HVACR workers to de-energize circuits and apply lockout before inspection or testing, unless live testing is absolutely necessary and appropriate PPE is used. Troubleshooting arcing circuits without isolating power violates control of hazardous energy and may result in electric shock or fire. Safety takes precedence, convenience or time saving. Question 23. During the process of investigating complaints of poor IAC, Mr. Bennett finds mold growth on the air handler insulation. What is the most appropriate course of action from a safety perspective? A. Spray disinfectant and monitor the area monthly. B. Replace the contaminated insulation using PPE and containment procedures. C. Inform the facility manager but take no action without authorization. D. Install UV lights to suppress further growth without removal. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. According to EPA and OSHA mold remediation guidelines, porous insulation contaminated with mold must be removed and replaced under controlled conditions. Spraying or covering does not eliminate the hazard and can spread spores during system operation. IAC concerns are health risks and must be addressed proactively with safe removal procedures. Question 24. In contrast to basic tool inspection practices, what safety measure should Mr. Young prioritize when using a corded reciprocating saw to cut rooftop ductwork? A. Ensure the extension cord is long enough for mobility. B. Wear loose-fitting clothing for flexibility. C. Verify ground fault circuit interrupters GSS are in use. D. Use the tool intermittently to prevent overheating. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. OSHA 1926.404 B. When ton and its GFSIS for all corded tools used in construction or outdoor environments to prevent electrocution. Rooftop work increases risk due to exposure to water and metal surfaces. Overheating concerns are secondary and loose clothing increases entanglement risk. Ground fault protection is non-negotiable for electrical safety. Question 25. From a practical standpoint, how should a safety manager address the rising number of musculoskeletal complaints from technicians repeatedly lifting rooftop package unit service panels? A. Require technicians to alternate lifting with coworkers. B. Provide powered lifts or mechanical aids to reduce strain. C. Encourage technicians to work out more frequently. D. Replace metal panels with lighter fiberglass alternatives. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. OSHA and NIOSH ergonomic guidelines emphasize engineering controls, like mechanical lifting devices, to minimize repetitive strain and injury, while buddy lifting helps temporarily. Mechanical aids reduce long-term injury risk and are more sustainable. Fitness training and redesigning equipment are longer-term or impractical solutions in most job environments. Question 26. What factors contribute to the effectiveness of a safety training program for new HVACR apprentices working around combustible materials and torches? A. Reviewing textbook content from their technical school. B. Conducting classroom lectures with weekly quizzes. C. Incorporating site-specific hands-on training with real hazard scenarios. D. Limiting training to verbal instructions from senior technicians. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.120 and ANSI-CSC.1 recommend hands-on, job-specific safety training, especially when fire hazards exist. Abstract instruction alone fails to convey real risks. Realistic scenarios improve retention and risk recognition. Quizzes and lectures help, but they cannot replace experiential learning for hazardous environments. Question 27. In a scenario where Mr. Domings detects 45 ppm of co-in, a mechanical room near a boiler stack, what must he do according to accepted IAC and OSHA safety guidelines? A. Continue working but leave the room periodically. B. Install a battery-operated code detector and return later. C. Evacuate the area and investigate the combustion system and ventilation. D. Weigh a dust mask and complete the service call quickly. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA's permissible exposure limit (PEL) for CO is 50 ppm over 8 hours, and NIOSH recommends exposure no higher than 35 ppm. Levels of 45 ppm demand immediate investigation and potential evacuation. A dust mask does not protect from CO, and partial avoidance, leaving periodically, fails to meet respiratory hazard standards. Question 20. When analyzing materials in a pre-1980 building during a retrofit, Clark notices damaged pipe insulation that may contain asbestos. What is her most compliant action under OSHA regulations? A. Proceed with work carefully without disturbing the insulation. B. Inform the building owner and request an asbestos survey before continuing. C. Wet the area and remove the insulation herself. D. Seal the area with duct tape to prevent fiber release. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 1926.1101 requires asbestos inspection and testing before disturbing suspect material. HVACR workers may not proceed based on assumptions or take removal into their own hands unless certified. A survey ensures appropriate handling, containment, or abatement. Wetting or sealing does not substitute regulatory compliance. Question 29. Taking into account a technician's observation of sparking at contactor under full load, which action should be taken immediately to eliminate risk? A. Tap the panel lightly to observe if the spark stops. B. Replace the contactor while system is energized to diagnose issue. C. Shut down the equipment, de-energize the panel, and inspect under lockout/egg-out. D. Ignore the issue since it only occurs intermittently. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA and NFPA 7i demand that all electrical troubleshooting be performed under de-energized and verified lockout/egg-out conditions unless justified. Sparks indicate arcing, which could lead to arc flash or fire. Ignoring or testing live violates multiple safety protocols and endangers lives. Intermittency does not reduce hazard severity. Question 30. By evaluating a company's safety controls after 3 near-miss events involving refrigerant burns, what steps should a safety professional take to improve hazard mitigation strategies? A. Increase signage in work areas. B. Retrain workers of PPE use and review work procedures. C. Replace all refrigerant lines preemptively. D. Ask employees to report all future incidents anonymously. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Near-miss analysis is a proactive tool under ANSI and OSHA's injury prevention model. Frequent near misses suggest inadequate PPE use, improper procedures, or both. Training and procedural audits are required. Signs and anonymous reporting support safety culture but don't directly address risk control failures.